Welcome to A Slob Comes Clean, the podcast. I am Dana K. White. I share my personal deslobification process as I figure out ways to keep my own home under control. I share the truth about cleaning and organizing strategies that actually work in real life for real people, people who don't love cleaning and organizing. Thanks for joining me today. This is podcast number 432. And I think I'm going to call it, spoiler alert, the answer is the container concept. So you don't need to listen to the episode because the container concept, that's the answer. It's going to be the answer to every single question that I will be answering today. And I think it'll give some understanding and just examples of times where you're like, oh, that's how the container concept makes this easier. Just a brief overview of the container concept in case this is your first time to listen. Containers are not for putting things in. Okay. I used to think that organized people loved containers because they like to put things in them. So I would try to put things in containers. My house was never organized. What I did not know was that containers are meant to contain. They are meant to serve as limits. When I view a container as a limit, then I let the container decide how much of something I can keep. Where before I used to fill up a container and think, well, I've still got more stuff. So I'd go and buy another container. And then I'd fill that up and buy another container. And my house was out of control. If I try to keep more stuff than will fit in my space, there is no hope of that stuff staying under control. Again, I have talked about this everywhere, on and on and on and on. So if you're new here, I recommend that you go to the video that is linked in the show notes for this show and watch that video. Okay. You can also just go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/a slob comes clean, or I think you can actually go to youtube.com/Dana K. White. And the first video that you're going to see on my channel is that container concept. Okay. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely go watch that. But here's some questions that the answer is going to be the container concept, but I will also explain why the container concept helps with that. First one is a good, long, descriptive question. Y'all ready? Okay. Help. No, there's more to it than that. My magazine clippings have invaded my clutter threshold. The clippings are images of homes, interiors, gardens, decor items, recipes, lifestyle, places I want to visit, and articles. All of the clippings represent a life that I would love to have, strive for. I realize that I likely feel a bit of ownership of the things that I cut out of the magazines. I love looking through them and want to collage or make vision boards, but don't make the time and I get overwhelmed and overthink what each vision board would represent. I am having an extremely difficult time giving myself permission to either keep them or throw them away. I feel guilty to take the time to sit down and flip through them. Also, I worry that I get pangs of envy or I feel like I'm a failure. I haven't lived up to the images. I'm telling myself that I must save them in order to refer to them when I am designing my dream house in the Bahamas or having that amazing cocktail party or planning my amazing garden or buying a new wardrobe or starting a new business where I would use my creativity. Whew. I need to purge and organize, yet I will get sucked into the emotion. The time cycle will have overwhelm, followed by paralysis. I need a system. I don't want to get rid of them, and I'm fighting myself and then feel secretly shameful that I am not living the life that is contained in these massive files of magazine clippings. All right. So the answer is the container concept. All right. Next question. No, I'm just kidding. Y'all, I get it, right? Like, and you get it. The person asking this question gets it. You get all of it's making me feel bad about the things that I haven't done. It's making me feel overwhelmed. It's all these, different things. You understand all of honestly, the reasons why you should probably get rid of them, but you also understand the reasons that are keeping you from getting rid of them and all that. So those are all things that are great to know. Right? Like a lot of people who talk about decluttering really zero in on all of those things like, go ahead and get rid of it because you can replace that stuff or it's only making you feel bad about yourself and all that. And all that's true. But what about when you still can't get rid of it? I understand that perspective. Like all these things that I know are true, come together to make me feel completely overwhelmed and shut down, and I just can't do anything, right? So, how do we apply the container concept here? How is that going to help you actually make this decision? Well, the container concept is helpful because none of those things, even if they are true, matter when it comes to the container concept. I don't have to decide, am I ever going to do this thing? I don't have to know for sure what the future holds for me. I don't have to any of that. Instead, I say, okay, what space do I have in my home that is a space where I can keep these magazine clippings? What space do I have that doesn't take up the space for the things that I am doing right now? Because you just said these are things for the future. These are things for the dream house, blah, blah, blah. But I've got my right now life. I don't know if you said right now life, but that's the truth here, right? Like, what place in my house can I give to these magazine clippings that won't keep me from living the life that I'm actually living? Maybe it's a shoebox on a shelf in a closet. Maybe it's a really pretty box that you already have. Okay, don't go shopping for pretty boxes. A really pretty box on your bookshelf that's out in the open and it's just going to be pretty, whatever. Maybe it is an album. That album could be the container. It is, as long as it is a finite, defined space that you do have the room for, then that can be your container, and then let that container make the hard decisions. Because if you pick, now don't pick a container according to how much stuff you think you want to keep. Pick the container according to the space that you actually have for it. Okay? And that you're willing to devote to it for, these possibilities of future things and blah blah blah. So let's say that it's a pretty box on a shelf and you go, this is the pretty box that I already have. It's the one that such and such came in, right? And I've always thought I wanted to do something with that. And so I kept that, because a lot of us who keep magazine clippings are also the kind who keep the pretty boxes, right? So you probably got one and you're like, this is the box. This box is decorative and it's going to look great on my shelf. I am happy to have this on there. One of the things I'm thinking right now is I have a blue train case, which is like an old style small, piece of luggage that you would put your makeup and stuff like that in, right? That holds some special photographs for me. So it's kind of a similar type thing, right? Like it doesn't it's a decorative piece, but it's a contained space for that. So you pick that and you're like, I'm willing to have this be out, and I would look for these magazine clippings in there. And that is the defined space. It is finite. I am not going to keep a bunch of things in order to keep all of this stuff. And then I can't actually function in my house because I've got so many boxes everywhere of magazine clippings. Instead, I say, this is the space that I can devote to this that doesn't take up room I need for other things. And then everything looks different at that point. This is the space that I am justified and I am okay and I can handle my house if I keep things that fit within this space. And then it becomes a fun thing to pick your favorites and put them in there. So all of these things that you're like, before, when I would look at it and I would look at all this and I would think, oh, should I have this or not? And I go, well, this is all this tropical house stuff, like tropical designs. And I'm like, okay, but am I really ever going to live in the Bahamas? Or is it the reality that I'll probably end up in a cold climate and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm having all these angsty feelings about what does the future hold, right? Where instead I go, this is the space I have for clippings. And I look at this and I put my favorite things in there first. And that may naturally sort out that, okay, I've got a lot of clippings for a tropical house. And that, I have no idea if that's really going to happen. But I do love these recipes. And so I'm putting the recipes in there because those are, my favorite ones first. And that becomes something that's like, oh, yes, absolutely. Deserves space for sure. Deserves space. And it just naturally leaves out the tropical furniture, right? And it becomes if not fun, at least a simple exercise. And then you let the size of that container determine how much of that stuff you can keep. So it's not this blanket, get rid of all of your magazine clippings. Which there are people who would tell you that because they would say, oh, well, you'll just look it up on the internet or whatever. And yet, if you love these magazine clippings and they represent all this stuff that you've worked on and you're thinking about working on and you want to make a vision board and blah, 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 then that's what gets you stuck. But instead say, okay, I've got space. This is the space. It's finite. It's defined. Don't make it a closet. Don't make it a shelf, entire shelf. It's a specific container that you're going to put these in. Pick out your favorites first, and it's going to naturally sort out what you really, truly deem important. Okay. And again, with the container concept, I say this again, like I've said it in other podcasts, not that I've said it today. It almost never comes down to a space being full and then making hard decisions. Just knowing that the space is limited, I am not going to be able to keep everything, naturally sorts out as you put it in there. And so many times you don't end up filling the entire container. So many times you have extra space in the container that you wouldn't have thought you would have extra space in the container. It feels like I'm going to fill it up and then make hard decisions. It actually just makes all the decisions easy from the very beginning. Because you look at it and you go, okay, well, what is important to me? Oh, well, that actually is not that important. And that's not that important. And that's not that important. But it didn't register that way when you were just looking at stuff and thinking, should I keep it? Should I not? Right? So use the container. All right. Next question. In response to your decluttering for your current self, instead of keeping stuff for who you used to be, my struggle is unpublished manuscripts. How do you decide when to throw it all away? The research, the notes, the manuscript itself, and the many idea boards. Okay. The answer is the container concept, right? It's very similar to what we just talked about with the magazine clippings, even though this is a big one. I mean, I'm an author, so I get it, right? Like the person you used to be, unpublished manuscripts. I mean, this is your heart, your soul, your sweat, your tears, all of that in that, right? And you said, how do you decide when to throw it all away? I'm not going to tell you to throw it all away, right? But I am going to say, okay, your right now life, you just said, my current self, this is the question that you've got. My current self is not a writer of manuscripts, is what it sounds like. So current self gets priority. If you are a painter of canvases, painting supplies would get priority space over published manuscripts. But if there is space for unpublished manuscripts, what is that space that doesn't take up the space that you need for the things that you actually do right now in your right now life? What is this space? And let's let that space be the container. Okay. Whether it's a shelf, whether it's not a shoebox because you want it to be a little bit bigger, but you know what I mean? Like a container for this, that I've got a space for it. It's not going to make my right now life harder. And that container is the limit. And so you know what that container is, and you go through your manuscripts and your research and your notes and all that. And it's going to naturally sort out. I'm not saying it's not going to be hard, but it's going to naturally sort out what is most important to you. Okay. So that you can say, all right, maybe you decide the actual manuscripts themselves deserve space in here. And so I can get rid of the research and the notes. Okay. And the idea boards. Or maybe you go, I decided not to publish that one, but the research is the thing that's most important to me. Maybe that gets priority space. Whatever it is, the container is going to help you identify what is most important to you, okay? Because it's a limited space. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. That's the beauty of the container concept. If I have a place for it, if there's space that doesn't keep me from being able to live my life, then I can keep anything. I just can't keep everything. I can't keep all of it because there's just not space for all of it. But I can keep what is most important to me. And knowing that the space is finite helps me identify what is most important to me. For our next question, we are going to be talking about, or I'm taking a question from someone who is recovered from an eating disorder. So I want to just let you know that in case it's something you don't want to hear about, you can skip ahead a little bit. Anyway, okay, here we go. I am recovered from an eating disorder, and having a range of clothing sizes to account for life's natural weight fluctuations has been key to my recovery. This is because if something no longer fits me, I am no longer propelled into unhealthy mechanisms to fit my clothes. This is not the main mechanism of my eating disorder, but because I am prone to it, I have always accommodated for a range of clothing sizes, so since it can keep me from even opening the door to the return to the eating disorder. However, I have now been recovered long enough that my weight fluctuates minimally, which is different than the initial dramatic fluctuations. So there is no reason for the range of clothes I have. But since the consequences are so serious, I feel compelled to keep it anyway, even though clothes clutter is the main reason I can't keep my home clean, and why every storage closet and 2 additional storage units are bursting at the seams and taking space from things I do need to actually store, rotate, use. It says help. I am under therapy care, so I do not require any counseling versus eating disorder there, but your method of decluttering is the only thing that has remotely helped me, and nothing a therapist has said on clutter actually has. If this is too sticky, no worries, but I thought I'd try asking. Okay. Let's talk about it. And again, I am not going to give any mental health disorder. Congratulations to you on the work that you have done and that you continue to do. That's wonderful, right? And so you're asking for my opinion on this. I would say really focus hard on the container concept. Okay. If this is what has worked for you, then this deserves space in your home. Like if this is something that has helped you in your recovery, and this is what you and your therapist have worked together and have decided is important to you, then it's important, right? But you did say that it's keeping you from being able to keep your home under control, and so many different spaces are full of clothing. Okay. So the answer is not that you've got to get rid of the variety of sizes. That's the thing that helps you. That's what you need. Okay. What I would say is go through the first 3 steps of the decluttering process on a closet. Okay. One, probably your primary space where you have the clothes that you generally wear right now. Okay. Go through that, the decluttering process. The first 3 steps, remember, are the things that don't need to be in there no matter what your situation. The first step is trash. And so with clothing, that's damaged things. That's things that you would never wear for any reason because it's, trash, basically, see if there's anything in there that you can get rid of just for that reason. Cause you're like, well, I actually wouldn't wear this no matter what my situation was. This is just something that I wouldn't. Okay. Easy stuff. Is there anything in this space that's actually not clothing and does belong somewhere else? Get that out of there. Is there anything in here that, you know what, I actually don't feel all the emotions about? And it's just obvious to me. Of course, I can get rid of that. Right. Like, so we get those things out of there first. And if there is nothing like that there, if everything feels fraught with emotions, if you can't identify trash, if you say there's absolutely nothing that obviously could go, it was still valuable to look and ask yourself those questions and go through those first steps, even if you didn't get rid of anything, because now you are looking at individual items. Because the problem is there's so many clothing that it is just this category of clothing and this unique challenge that you face that altogether makes you feel overwhelmed. So just even saying, is there any trash here? Is there anything that's easy? Are there any obvious donations? Just asking yourself those questions and looking at individual items makes you more ready to get into the container concept, which is the thing that's going to be the most helpful to you. Okay. So you say, all right, this is the actual space where I go on a regular morning for the clothes that fit me right now. Right? I'm not saying we're going to get rid of anything that doesn't fit you right now. We're not going to say that. You and your therapist decide that together. But we are going to say that the space that you have is the space that you have. Okay. And so let me just blame the container. Let me just say, this is the space that I really want to be the limit to clothing so that I can live the other parts of my life that have nothing to do with clothing and any of that so that I can live them more easily. Okay. I want this to be the limit. Maybe it's this closet. Maybe it's this 3 closets. I don't know. But you say, this is the one. And I am going to blame the container, not making the call according to what might happen in the future and how this might be a struggle, but say, this is the container. This is the space I have. So knowing that, what are the things that maybe I should keep, but I'm going to blame the container. Okay. I'm going to blame the container and let that be the thing. And maybe for you, because this is a challenge and because this is something that has been recommended by your therapist, where someone else might say, there's no reason for you to have more than one closet. Maybe you do need a closet of additional clothes for you. So you have one closet, and this is the stuff that I actually am wearing right now. And then you have another closet that is the stuff for some fluctuation in weight, right? And that knowing that you've got that is very helpful to you. That's what you've said. So we have that where another person might not need that. Maybe you do, and that's fine. But those 2 spaces are the limits, right? Because I can totally understand how it's like, well, this was helpful. So now I don't want to get rid of anything, but then you're also frustrated with the amount of clothing that you have, right? So giving yourself permission to say, yeah, this is what I need. This is the thing that I need. This is the thing that works for me. So it deserves space in my home, but it doesn't deserve all the space in my home. Okay. And letting the container be the deciding factor. Okay. I need to have this closet full of the stuff that I actually wear. That's the limit there. And then this closet is the one for my fluctuations in weight so that I know that whatever happens, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to have, those options and those, possibilities. So, but I'm going to let that be the limit. Okay. And also take this mindset and this idea of the container concept and talk it through with your therapist and say, okay, this is the decluttering method that works for me. Here's her video on the container concept that makes sense to me. Here's how I want to apply it to my clothing. Let's talk this through and talk it through with your therapist. Okay. I appreciate you asking. Thank you for trusting me with that. And again, congratulations on all the work that you've been doing. Okay. Next question. I love this one so much. I love it so much. Okay, here we go. I've been doing some great decluttering, but as soon as my hubby says, I think we should declutter or our house is a mess, we should get rid of stuff, I lose all motivation. How do I combat this? Oh my goodness, I totally get it. I think there's a couple things here. First of all, it's like, well, I want to do it if it's my idea, but if it's somebody else's idea, then I don't want to do it, right? Like, I get that. That's one of my own personality flaws as well, right? So I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying I completely get it way too much. Also, it can also be that maybe you are like, I've been doing great decluttering. And then him saying that we need to declutter makes me feel like, oh, so you haven't even noticed the work that I've been doing. Why would I keep doing work? Because you haven't even noticed it, right? So let the container be the thing that inspires you to keep going, because it's the container saying that I have too much stuff, right? Like it's the contain. If I'm keeping more stuff than can fit in these spaces, it's the container that's making those hard decisions, not my husband, right? Not my husband saying it. So it just focus in on, I'm going to zero in on embracing the realities of the container instead of getting frustrated that, somebody else thinks whatever. So, okay. But also I would recommend, this is kind of away from the container concept. It is still the container concept works. When you are decluttering, focus in visible areas. Follow the visibility rule. The visibility rule is that you start in the most visible space so that the decluttering that you're doing is noticeable, both to you so that you're then inspired to keep going, and to the other people who live in your house. And so they see the impact of what you're doing. If you've been decluttering in the back corner of the basement where nobody else in your family ever goes, and so they don't see the work that you've been doing, then that could be part of this. So focus in on those visible areas. There's so much power in the momentum that builds from following the visibility rule. Okay. So do that, but also let it be the container that's bossing you around, because the container, there's no weirdness there, right? Like, and there's no like, well, I don't want to do what the container is just the container. It just is what it is, right? So let that be the thing that helps you be motivated to keep going. Also, great job on all the decluttering that you're doing. What do you do if your container for a type of item is perfectly filled, but then you receive an unexpected gift that you could grow to love, but you don't want to donate a current favorite just to try it out? Background, for example, my earrings were out of control, so I bought a 32 pair earring stand, filled it up with my favorites, and donated the rest. I am really confident that I love and wear all these earrings, but then a friend gave me a new pair of earrings that are really pretty and my aesthetic. I would need about 2 months to see if I actually wear them based on my outfits and moods. I don't want to donate an old favorite pair on the off chance I do like the new pair better, but I also don't want to donate the gift without giving it a proper chance in case they become my new go-to. The problem is my stand fits exactly 32 pairs and I don't have another place for earrings. Okay, here's what I think. I think you love earrings. I think your friends know that. And this is probably not going to be the last time that a very thoughtful friend gives you earrings, right? Because they know how much you love earrings. I think that you need to consider your 32 pair earring stand as a 30 pair earring stand. Okay. You've done a great job. You probably got rid of some ones that you didn't think you'd ever want to get rid of because the container concept worked for you. But think of it as a 30 pair earring stand with 2 spots for earrings that you're testing out. Okay. Because you're probably also, if you love earrings this much, you're probably also gonna buy some earrings that you see at a craft fair or a specialty store or wherever because you love earrings so much, right? So consider the container to be 30 with a small container within that for 2 that are earrings being tested out. You know, that's what I would do. Okay. Next question. I want to declutter. I want to get rid of stuff. But since I was a kid, I was kind of shamed for throwing stuff away. Someone gave it to you. It's still good for use. We could sell it to make some money, but we never did. And I was never allowed to get rid of it. No eBay back in the 90s. When both of my parents died, I'm sorry about that, by the way. And I ordered a huge trash container to clear out the house. I had neighbors dive into the container to retrieve objectively old, not valuable stuff, saying, your parents would turn in their graves if they knew you're throwing all this away. Again, this is me again. I'm sorry that people said that to you. That was the opposite of helpful, especially in your time of need. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Yes, they were hoarders themselves. Yes, those comments hurt so much. Now we live in a rental apartment with a very small trash can for 3 households and a landlord, neighbors telling me not to throw away too much stuff or it'll get full too quickly. So decluttering means A, I have to get all the trash and 2, donate stuff to my car, which gives me so much anxiety about what the neighbors would say about having so much stuff to declutter in the first place and about the stuff itself I'm throwing out or donating. Driving around, getting rid of all that stuff feels so overwhelming. What can I do to overcome this? Sorry if this has gotten kind of long, but I kind of felt I had to explain the background. Thank you for all you do. Okay. This is a lot. This is a lot. Okay. And while the background stuff could very well merit some professional counseling, I think that could be helpful for you in that. The container concept is very helpful in these situations because there's a lot here. There's a lot that you're thinking. There's a lot people are putting on you that should never have put on you. But you can blame the container. Let the container be the bad guy. And the container is your house. It is your current apartment where you live that has a very small trash can for 3 households and landlord's neighbor telling me not to throw away too much stuff or it'll get full too quickly. I mean, like, that is your reality. This is the space that you have. And so as far as like, I know we're kind of going back in time and you had to go through all this with the neighbors and cleaning out your parents' house, which is hard enough on its own without people putting extra pressure on you. The facts are the facts. And so when I say that, when you're dealing with people who are putting undue pressure on you, blaming the container by saying, my house doesn't have space for it. People will try to argue, but it's not actually arguable. My house doesn't have space for it. And if they say, oh, well, there's a whole corner over there, you could pile things up. That corner is where I need to walk, or my kids play games, or like that. This living room is not a storage space. I mean, like those are just facts that you can blame the container, and learning things like, oh, that's right. A living room is not storage space if I want to actually be able to live in it functionally and easily. So letting yourself blame the container and let the container be like, this is all hard. These things might be great, but there's no room. My house is the size that it is. My apartment is the size that it is. I wish I could keep more. It allows me to say, I wish I could keep this. I know that my parents would wish I could keep this. The facts are, I don't have the space for it. I don't have the room for it. Okay. As far as the throwing away, I think all of that background then makes you extra sensitive to the thing with the trash and the 3 households and the apartment and the landlord and the neighbors. Okay. What I honestly would do there is set an alarm for when those trash cans get empty, and when they actually get picked up and they get emptied. And that alarm, whether it's the, night before they get emptied or the morning that they get emptied or whatever, set an alarm for every week or whenever that happens. And at that point, right, before it's going to get actually taken away, go in and fill it as full as you can possibly fill it. Like, make that the thing. My husband and I have 2 trash things because my husband loves trash. Y'all know that, right? Like, he loves throwing stuff away, which is great. Very helpful for me. When we moved to the country, you have to actually hire a trash service like that comes by and picks up your trash. It's not done by the city like it was when we lived in the city, right? So we live in the country. We had to hire that. And when I called to do it, they were like, well, do you want 1 or 2 trash cans? And I was like, well, my husband loves trash. I didn't say that out loud, but I was like, I think I'll get 2. So one time I came home and on a Friday, and I realized he had only put out 1 trash can. And I was like, honey, you only put out 1 trash can. What in the world's going on? He's like, I know, I didn't have enough for a second trash can. So I realized, oh, well, we're paying for that trash can. You have every right to this trash can for these 3 households. Yes, you have to share it with other people, but it's like, I'm going to make use of that. So we are like, okay, what else? Let's look around the house and see, is there anything else that we haven't realized actually needs to be thrown away so we can fill up that trash can so that we're not, wasting any of the space that we do have on that. So that's what would be my recommendation, is the container concept of, okay, I do want to fill my trash can as full as I can fill it. Fill it. I do want to fill my trash can as full as I can fill it. That was really hard to say, as Rachel knows. Hopefully she took out a few of my mistakes. But that trash can, I know the last minute of, okay, everybody else has had a chance to put their stuff in there. I'm going to fill it up the rest of the way. And also remember, I know it's hard, but the more that you throw out and donate, the more you say, this is actually the thing I need to put my time and energy into, is the actual getting trash and donations out, whatever it takes. Because the more that I do that, then the more sensitive I'm going to be to bringing things in. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it was a hassle. Yes, I had all these feelings brought about by my history that made it hard for me to throw things out. It's going to make me more sensitive to even bringing things into my house that are going to need to be thrown out eventually. And so that's why I always say the best way to keep from bringing things into your house is to go through the pain of getting rid of those things. And so I know it's hard and I know it's not fun, but know that it's going to have value for you. Okay. All right. I hope this has been helpful. Remember, the container concept is basically the answer to all decluttering questions. If you want to ask questions that might be answered here or on one of my YouTube videos, go to askdanakWhite.com and you can fill out that form there, and I will eventually get to answer your question. And if you need a question answered like right now, the best thing to do is go hire one of my coaches at declutteringcoaches.com. Those are my coaches trained by me in my no mess decluttering process. They know how to help you with your clutter. They know how to help you apply the container concept to your unique situation. They're lovely, they're kind, and that would be the best thing to do is you can go get you a coach. A lot of them can come to your house if they're in your area, but most of them also coach online. So go to declutteringcoaches.com, find you a coach who can actually help you with your unique situation if that's what you need. All right. I will talk to y'all next week. Bye.